Standing at the entrance gate of a sleepy town, a sleepy guard carefully examines a wooden identification pass, completely baffled to see the royal Raymond family name. Satisfied, after taking a closer second look, he hands the token back and lets Russell pass. His noisy partner immediately announces the boy's noble heritage to the surrounding crowd today. Whispers quickly erupt through the busy street as onlookers mock Russell's tattered cloak and filthy bandages, doubting that founding noble bloodlines are anything special. Completely ignoring their toxic remarks, Russell glares down at his own shadow, determined to prove them wrong, as he quietly makes his way toward the majestic white tower to seek work as a mercenary. Smirking beneath his filthy hood, Russell silently tells the gossiping fools to get out of his way today. Reaching the high crest of a grassy hill, he gazes upon the breathtaking capital city in total awe. Walking down the vibrant streets, he halts right in front of the massive Mage Tower, chuckling softly at the epic fortress of Empire guards.
Flashes of horrific battle memories crash into his mind, recalling the intense historical war where his noble father was brutally pierced by enemy steel on the bloody battlefield. Following that devastating defeat, his heartbroken mother fled their ancestral castle with young Russell, leaving the desperate boy clinging to a lingering hope of reclaiming their lost territory one day.
Clinging tightly to his mother's glowing magical ring, little Russell wept bitterly while being carried away by loyal household servants. His ultimate dream of joining the elite Mage Tower was shattered after being unfairly expelled from the academy. Facing 3 arrogant academy judges, the broke student bowed his head as they coldly announced his sudden, humiliating expulsion today. Although the bald judge acknowledged Russell's stellar academic performance, he scoffed at the boy's pathetic combat potential. The second judge mocked his defective, ultra-thin mana channels, stating he could never manifest a proper second magic circle. Clutching his chest in sheer despair, Russell felt completely cursed by his tragic, hopeless physical limitations in this harsh world. Returning to the present, Russell sits on the curb, having miraculously formed a weak second circle through pure grit. Suddenly, the heavy tower gates swing open, and a mage arrogantly announces that no more temp workers are needed today. The exhausted crowd groans in anger, while Russell stares silently at the imposing tower towering high above him. Overhearing nearby workers mention temporary cleaning jobs at the local museum, Russell contemplates his next desperate move. Shivering inside his shabby cloak, he glares up at the creepy Mage Tower before reaching deep into his dirty coat pocket. He pulls out a tiny, nearly empty coin pouch, realizing he must secure immediate work just to survive tonight. Arriving at the Grand Ruba Museum, the pompous director boasts about their massive collection while guiding temporary workers through sparkling corridors. He strictly warns everyone to control their wine magic during cleaning, threatening severe punishment if any priceless artifact gets damaged. Russell tags along, instantly identifying most of the fancy exhibits as absolute fakes with a chuckle. Continuing through the luxurious hall, Russell ignores the director's annoying lectures about upcoming aristocratic tour. He scans the room with sharp, cynical eyes, completely unimpressed by the glossy decor and cheap magic displays. Unfazed by the surrounding hype, the young mage keeps walking alongside the other workers. Passing through a grand doorway, a sudden wave of intense familiarity hits Russell hard, stopping him dead in his tracks. Reading the ancient plaque mounted above, he realizes he has entered the Kingdom of Illusions exhibit. Before he can process the nostalgia, a strange, rapid pulse vibrates violently inside his coat pocket, catching him completely off guard tonight. Reaching into his pocket, Russell pulls out his mother's prized heirloom ring, which is buzzing wildly like crazy. Baffled by this sudden magical reaction, he stares blankly at the glowing artifact resting in his hand. Driven by an irresistible force, his legs move on their own as he walks deeper into the exhibit, leaving his oblivious coworkers behind. Stepping inside the quiet chamber, Russell finds himself face to face with a gigantic dragon skeleton. The dragon eye ring on his finger vibrates even harder now, releasing a faint stream of glowing mana. Remembering how his mother brought him here as a little boy, Russell closes his eyes, overwhelmed by fond childhood memories in this very room today. Flashes of his past echo softly in his mind, recalling his younger self laughing happily while exploring the vast museum halls with his mother. In his memory, the little boy suddenly points toward a dark, forgotten corner of the room. Opening his eyes in shock, adult Russell immediately marches around the display wall to investigate the hidden spot. Rounding the corner, Russell freezes as his eyes land on an ancient, pulsating dragon heart inside a glass display case. Staring down at the glowing artifact, he compares it with his mother's dragon eye ring, deeply puzzled as to why his family heirloom led him directly to this legendary, long-lost magical core stored inside the museum today. The ring pulses violently, as if urging him to put it on immediately. Slipping the ring onto his finger, the intense vibrations suddenly stop completely, leaving the room dead silent. Standing before the massive skeleton under crushing invisible pressure, Russell chuckles bitterly, wondering if he has finally reached his absolute physical limit after all his endless, painful struggles. As total darkness envelopes the silent room, Russell waits breathlessly in the heavy stillness, sensing that something big is coming. Without warning, bright crimson electricity erupts from the ring, illuminating the exhibition hall. The colossal dragon skeleton spreads its wings wide as an overwhelming surge of ancient power triggers an epic, unstoppable magical phenomenon right before his eyes. A majestic dragon materializes, declaring that Russell has been chosen to forge a brand new myth. Granting him a magnificent second chance at life, the mythical beast vanishes into the dark void. Instantly, glowing system panels pop up directly in front of his face, displaying mysterious notifications while a strange voice persistently calls out his name from above. Opening his eyes, Russell is suddenly slammed on the head with a heavy magic textbook. Waking up inside a sunlit academy classroom, he jumps up in pure outrage, rubbing the painful bump on his crown. His strict professor, Hubert, glares at him furiously, scolding the top student for daring to sleep during his important magical lecture today. Staring dumbfounded at Professor Hubert, Russell pales as he recalls that this legendary man should be dead. Turning around in total disbelief, he sees his former classmates giggling and whispering at his silly reaction. Touching his smooth face and youthful body, a sudden surge of realization sends violent chills down his spine right in front of everyone. Slamming both hands onto his desk, Russell realizes in absolute shock that he has traveled back in time. Returned to his academy days with all his future knowledge intact, the young mage grins internally, ready to rewrite his tragic destiny, fix his broken mana channels, and dominate the entire magical world completely from scratch this time around. Bright rays of morning sunlight illuminate the academy hallway outside the faculty office. Standing inside, Russell bows his head, still in complete disbelief over his temporal regression. Professor Hubert massaged his temples in frustration, scolding the boy for acting completely out of character before deciding to hand down a severe, formal punishment today. After an intense lecturing session, the doors slam open as Russell gets booted right out of the professor's office. Stepping onto the marble floor, he inspects his mana flow, realizing time travel completely defies ordinary magic laws. Remembering the majestic dragon, he looks down at his hand in pure amazement to check his magical ring. To his shock, his mother's heirloom ring has disappeared, replaced by a subtle tattoo on his finger. Silently thanking his mother for this second chance at life, Russell turns around as Professor Hubert steps outside to speak with him again. The strict teacher frowns, reminding his unusual student to fix his bizarre behavior today. Hubert places his hands behind his back, ordering Russell to report to his office at lunchtime for a private talk. With that warning delivered, the professor turns around and walks away down the hallway. Straightening his posture with a warm grin, Russell chuckles internally, realizing he actually missed being scolded by his legendary instructor. Watching his teacher disappear around the corner, Russell is suddenly slammed right on the back of his head by an arrogant hand. Cursing in frustration, he spins around to face Frederick, a wealthy bully from a noble family, laughing hysterically alongside his mindless goons as they look down on the fallen, broke aristocrat today. Grabbing his goon's arm, Frederick gloats that the professors are watching them closely right now. He scowls at Russell, demanding why his homework wasn't filled out like ordered earlier. Glaring with cold contempt, the fat bully warns Russell to follow them directly to the private restroom if he wants to avoid getting beaten alive. As the cocky gang turns around and walks away, Russell grins with utter amusement at their hilarious arrogance. Suddenly, a glowing blue system window pops up directly in front of his face, assigning him a brand new quest to brutally crush Frederick's gang. Trying to verify if it is real, Russell passes his hand straight through the holographic screen in absolute awe. Glancing back over his heavy shoulder, Frederick yells loudly at Russell, mockingly warning him that running away inside the academy grounds is completely useless. The ugly bully grins viciously, daring the boy to try fleeing like a helpless coward. Frowning at their backs, Russell cracks his knuckles, fully intending to beat these loud punks up regardless of system rewards today. Recalling his painful past life as a veteran mercenary, Russell remembers surviving brutal battles surrounded by terrifying, bloodthirsty monsters on the field. Compared to those nightmare beasts, these three arrogant schoolyard bullies are nothing more than helpless, cute little kittens in his eyes. Smirking at their pure ignorance, he marches steadily toward their designated spot without any fear at all. Stepping inside the quiet private restroom, Russell finds the three hooligans waiting for him in smug anticipation. Leaning casually against the counter, Frederick holds a smoking pipe, calling Russell a pathetic little slug for taking so long to arrive. Instead of cowering, Russell smiles back coldly, greeting the wealthy noble bully with an extremely insulting nickname right to his face. Annoyed by the boy's disrespect, the fat goon steps forward to land a heavy strike on him. Ducking easily under the wild punch, Russell counters with a brutal, lightning-fast strike straight into his opponent's soft stomach. The heavy thud collapses backward onto the cold floor, gasping for breath, while his shocked friend screams out in sheer disbelief today. Filled with furious rage, the second goon rushes forward with a desperate battle cry to attack. Russell casually pivots his body, smashing a brutal right hook directly into the guy's face, dropping him instantly onto the hard ground. Throwing his smoking pipe aside, Frederick scoffs arrogantly, mocking Russell for practicing martial arts since his magical talent failed so miserably. Flicking his pipe away, Frederick slips on heavy brass knuckles, secretly channeling illegal magic to enhance his strike. Smiling viciously, he knows nobody will notice this forbidden trick in a private bathroom brawl. With an explosive leap forward, the cocky noble hurls a magic-infused punch straight toward Russell's face with lethal, dangerous intent right in front of him. Russell casually raises his open palm, effortlessly catching the magic-enhanced punch midair with complete ease. Shocked by the raw defense, Frederick trembles in panic. Without hesitation, Russell brutally twists the bully's wrist backward with crushing force, making the arrogant noble drop to his knees while screaming violently in agony from the intense, electricity-like pain hitting him today. Glaring down at the sobbing bully near his discarded pipe, Russell coldly calls him an incompetent, pathetic child. He reminds Frederick that his own noble family has long abandoned him, leaving him completely overshadowed by his far superior brothers. The desperate noble grits his teeth in sheer humiliation, utterly terrified by the icy, ruthless killer gaze in Russell's shining eyes. Sweating profusely in total horror, Frederick begs for mercy as Russell pulls back his heavy fist, preparing to deliver a final, devastating blow. Bringing his tight fist dangerously close to the bully's face, Russell halts his attack just millimeters away from his nose. Trembling on the floor, the defeated noble realizes he was entirely helpless against this truly terrifying monster. Walking toward the exit, Russell coldly orders Frederick to behave like a quiet, peaceful student from now on. Glancing back at the three broken bullies groaning on the wet floor, he promises to kill them next time if they ever cross him again. Stepping out into the hallway, Russell sits down on the ground to calm his racing adrenaline. Sitting quietly in the empty corridor, Russell rubs his burning eyes, trying to process his newfound power. Suddenly, a system notification pops up in front of him, awarding a low-grade magic stone for quest completion. A glowing red crystal drops directly into his open hand, leaving him staring in complete disbelief at the strange system tag written upon it. Staring down at the glowing crystal resting in his hand, Russell chuckles in pure disbelief, realizing the system actually wants him to swallow it. Even primitive cavemen never ate solid stones, yet he hesitantly brings the magical gemstone right up to his mouth. With a sharp crunch, he chews and swallows the low-level magic stone today. Chewing the tough crystal, Russell chuckles internally, realizing that eating magical stones is somehow totally fine in this strange world. As the swallowed stone dissolves in his stomach, pure mana begins creeping into his sluggish body. Suddenly, a massive wave of raw power erupts violently from his core, unleashing pure magic through his veins today. Clenching his fists in sheer focus, Russell pounds his own chest as the overwhelming energy surges upward toward his heart. Closing his eyes, he breathes deeply while guiding the wild power directly into his body. The glowing mana gradually stabilizes and gets fully absorbed into his magical circle, permanently expanding his previously narrow mana channels today. Inspecting his glowing hands with a triumphant grin, Russell celebrates overcoming his physical limits. Flashes of his tragic past echo softly in his mind, recalling his hopeless escape with loyal servants and the harsh expulsion by academy judges. Walking down the hallway, he smiles with absolute confidence, realizing he can finally rewrite his destiny today. Shaking off his lingering doubts, Russell marches straight into the professor's office and takes a seat across from his respected mentor. Professor Hubert sips his hot tea casually, observing that the young student isn't acting like his usual timid self. Looking at the tea sweets on the desk, Hubert gently asks if he is experiencing trouble today. Hubert reveals he heard rumors about other wealthy nobles bullying Russell on campus grounds. Hearing these caring words, Russell feels deeply touched, remembering how this noble professor never gave up on him even during his tragic past life. Looking up with a genuine smile, he assures his instructor that everything is fine while expressing his heartfelt gratitude. Hubert places a heavy textbook on the desk, reminding Russell that sleeping during class still requires a strict academic punishment. Opening to page 62, he orders a long report on initial magic enhancement, a grueling topic. Instantly, a bright system window pops up in front of Russell's face, issuing a formal quest for this assignment. Smiling widely at the daunting task, Russell confidently accepts the punishment, surprising the professor with his sudden enthusiasm. Returning home later that evening, he stretches casually at his desk, staring down at blank sheets of paper. Having studied theory obsessively in his past life to compensate for poor talent, he finished the heavy report with ease. Standing near the window, Russell gazes outside, knowing physical training is just as vital as theory. Recalling his past life, he remembers running across scorching desert dunes where mana moved through rhythmic breathing. In that memory, a giant desert scorpion suddenly emerges from the sand, forcing the desperate warrior to dodge deadly strikes while gathering mana in his heart. Dodging the monster's sharp claws, Russell unleashed a fiery explosion using reverse spell incantations, but the massive beast emerged unscathed from the thick smoke. Raising his hands to manifest a desperate magic shield, he braced for impact as the deadly scorpion tail swept across the field, slamming his fragile body directly into a giant stone column today. The sheer force of the impact smashed his narrow mana channels against the solid pillar, cracking the ancient stone beneath his feet. Coughing violently, Russell felt his physical limits dragging him down once again as the structural ground gave way completely. With nowhere left to run, his battered body plummeted straight into a dark, bottomless abyss below. Miraculously surviving the terrifying fall through pure luck, Russell opened his eyes to find himself resting inside ancient, long-forgotten ruins. Slowly pulling himself up from the rubble, he looked around the magnificent subterranean palace in utter awe, discovering two legendary magic books hidden deep within the altar, glowing softly in the quiet darkness. Reaching out with trembling hands, a blinding flash of light illuminated the entire cave as Russell touched the two ancient spellbooks. Returning to the present day, he begins sprinting around the academy grounds, applying those secret methods to expand his mana channels through rigorous push-ups and physical conditioning, forcing his growing muscles to replace defective internal pathways. Hanging off a thick tree branch, Russell realizes that training inside a young, growing body yields far greater results than doing so as an adult. Sweat pours down his tired face as he pushes his physical limits to the absolute edge, determined to overcome his narrow channels. As the sun sets, he leans against a tree, smiling happily today. Without warning, a glowing system notification pops up in front of his face, ordering him to run 5 additional kilometers. Exhausted, Russell groans in frustration, asking why this quest appeared so late. Suddenly, 3 system notifications flash consecutively in the air, revealing this is a daily quest with ever-changing daily distance requirements for his physical growth. Raising his shaking hands in total shock, Russell gives a nervous laugh before committing to complete the grueling run. Pushing his body forward, he steadily completes the first few kilometers while sweat pours down his flushed face. His heavy legs tremble with every step, forcing him to grit his teeth as he pushes through the painful final stretch. Checking the remaining distance on his floating screen, Russell leans heavily on his knees to catch his breath. Closing his eyes tight, he refuses to give up, forcing his exhausted feet to keep moving forward through the darkness. Night settles over the academy grounds, and glittering stars fill the sky as the determined young mage keeps running tirelessly. Crossing the invisible finish line, Russell collapses onto the soft grass, completely exhausted after completing the difficult system quest. Lying on his back, he pants heavily under the starry night sky, unable to move a single muscle. Unbeknownst to him, a mysterious student named Anton grins in the shadows, mockingly watching his desperate efforts today. Inspecting the detailed magic report resting on his table, Professor Hubert marvels internally at how a student could derive such profound academic conclusions from standard entry-level textbooks. Raising his hand with a raised eyebrow, he directly asks the young man whether he genuinely composed every single insight and theoretical analysis entirely by himself today. Placing his hand firmly over his heart, Russell calmly swears upon his own magic, proving his total honesty. Impressed by his pupil's uncheckable confidence, Hubert accepts the paper with a satisfied nod. Instantly, the system window flashes to confirm his quest completion. Stepping forward, Russell directly asks to access the restricted professor's private library. Pointing toward the window, Hubert claims the main student library already offers sufficient study materials. Russell chuckles softly, explaining he has already memorized every single book inside. Hubert's hand trembles violently in absolute shock upon hearing this wild claim. The instructor leans back, admitting that while impressive, they still face another major problem. Interlacing his fingers, Hubert insists on testing Russell's true worth before granting special access. Russell agrees with a wide, confident smile, ready for any challenge. Standing under a tree later, Russell receives endless system notifications issuing new assignments. He never imagined the strict professor would assign such a massive pile of demanding academic quests. Stroking his chin, Russell realizes mastering high-level theory directly empowers his magic. Uncapping an elixir bottle, he drinks it down, knowing that completing these missions also awards precious magic stones. As he rests under the trees, a tall blonde student approaches in the shadows, revealing himself as Anton, the arrogant older brother of Frederick. Anton mocks Russell, asking if he switched to physical sports because of his weak mana channels. Russell coolly asks if Anton came to avenge his beaten sibling. Anton raises his hand with a smug laugh, declaring he won't waste time revenging a bug, preferring to crush him. Pushing past Russell, Anton snickers that they will meet in combat class. Watching the cocky upperclassmen leave, Russell knows Anton avoided fighting now simply due to the lack of spectators. The cool wind sways his towel as he reflects on his past life. He remembers combat magic practice was his worst class, a humiliating arena where he always ended up beaten on the dirt, usually facing Anton. Determined to change his tragic fate, Russell resolves to prepare thoroughly for the upcoming sparring match. A glowing system window pops up, ordering him to reach the second circle before fighting Anton. Over the following days, Russell works like a maniac, writing brilliant magic dissertations and running using every bit of strength to shock the professor. Delivering all his completed research papers to Hubert constantly amazes the strict instructor. The blue system window flashes continuously, notifying Russell about the successful completion of his academic tasks. Returning to his private room after a long day, the exhausted young mage stands before his wooden table, ready to take his next major step. Russell stares intently at the glowing magic stones piled high on his table, reaching out his hand with deep hesitation. He thoughtfully asks himself if his frail mana channels can truly withstand such raw energy, his pupils dilating from nervous excitement. Trusting his grueling physical training, he courageously crushes and swallows all the magic crystals at once. 200 to 220 to 1057. For a second, his whole body freezes in complete stillness before explosive mana bursts out from his core. Enveloped in a massive vortex of pure energy, Russell feels as though he is burning alive in a fiery furnace. Pounding his chest to maintain control, he forces the raging power into a brilliant glow that illuminates the room. Gritting his teeth in agony, Russell desperately guides the chaotic magic streams around his pounding heart to form a brand new circle. He knows that if his frail mana channels fail to handle this intense pressure right now, his heart will instantly burst from the overflow. Swirling magic rages violently, threatening to destroy him from within. Remembering his past life, Russell maintains absolute control over the surging energy, slowly stabilizing the wild currents in his chest. The intense light glows brighter and brighter before gradually settling down into his core. Swirling streams of mana circulate through his body, gradually aligning with his heartbeat as he prepares for the final magical absorption process. With a sudden surge of light, the second magic circle successfully forms, absorbing all the energy completely into his heart. Exhausted, Russell falls onto the floor as his eyes close. The system notifies him that the quest is complete, significantly boosting his fundamental mastery over fire magic while a gentle wind passes through his room. The scene shifts to Professor Hubert's office, where the instructor sits with interlaced fingers. Frowning in deep thought, Hubert prepares to ask a question closer to the ultimate truth. Looking at the student whose cloak flutters softly, Hubert sternly asks which of the four fundamental magic structures holds the greatest importance when casting spells in battle. Russell remains completely motionless, carefully analyzing the deep question. Hubert frowns, realizing he just asked something he only recently learned himself after decades of intense research. Slamming his desk, the professor offers to ask an easier question instead. However, Russell bows his head with a confident grin, shocking Hubert by announcing he knows the answer.